What would you do if the person begging on the street corner wasn't homeless at all, but a billionaire testing your heart? Would you still offer kindness, or would you walk away? Ethan Cole had asked himself that same question one lonely night, but not as a bystander. He was the one planning the test. The city lights glowed beneath his penthouse window, but none of it brought him peace. He had everything: money, fame, influence. Yet there was a hollow space inside him that nothing seemed to fill. Love, he had learned, was the easiest thing to fake and the hardest to trust. He had been in relationships that sparkled on the outside, but crumbled once the money disappeared. Every "I love you" he heard came wrapped in conditions, every touch laced with expectation. It wasn't affection anymore. It was a business deal. That night, as rain streaked the glass, Ethan made a decision that would change the course of his life. He would vanish from this world of privilege. He would strip away every layer of wealth and comfort and see what remained. He withdrew cash from an account no one could trace, bought torn jeans and worn-out sneakers from a thrift store, and rented a single-room apartment on the edge of downtown. He even stopped shaving, letting stubble shadow his jaw, and smeared a little dirt on his face. For 30 days, he would live on the streets. No name, no phone, no safety net. If there was a person who could love him when he had nothing, he wanted to find her. On his first night out, the cold bit into him like he'd never known before. His body ached from sitting on hard concrete, and the city's noise became a distant hum of indifference. People passed him by as if he didn't exist. By the third day, hunger clawed at his stomach. His pride fought against the urge to beg, but survival left him little choice. He scribbled words on a piece of cardboard, hungry but hopeful. It was just before sunset when he dragged himself to a spot near a small diner called Mara's. The scent of coffee and frying eggs drifted through the air, and the warmth from inside tempted him like a memory of a life he no longer claimed. He sat there for hours, head down, trying not to think of the penthouse he had left behind. No one stopped. A few people glanced, then looked away. Some tossed coins without breaking stride. But as the evening grew darker, the sound of footsteps stopped beside him. He looked up. A young woman stood there, her dark hair pulled into a loose ponytail, her eyes tired but kind. Her name, as he would later learn, was Lila. She wore the uniform of the diner, white blouse, black apron, and held a small paper bag in her hand. She hesitated for a moment before kneeling down beside him. "Have you eaten today?" she asked softly. Ethan shook his head, caught off guard by her gentle tone. "Here," she said, offering the bag. "It's just leftovers, but it's still warm." He stared at the bag, then at her face. Most people couldn't even look him in the eye. Yet here she was, offering food and a smile that didn't feel rehearsed. "Thank you," he said quietly. She stood, brushing rain from her sleeve. "Take care of yourself, all right?" Before he could reply, she walked away into the night. Ethan sat there for a long time, holding the bag as though it were treasure. Inside was half a sandwich and a small slice of pie. He ate slowly, not because he wanted to save the food, but because he wanted to hold on to the feeling that someone, just one person, had cared. The next evening, she appeared again, and the one after that. Each night, she brought him something small: soup, a roll, a cup of coffee. Sometimes she stayed and talked. Other times, she simply smiled, said goodnight, and disappeared into the rain. He learned that she lived nearby, in a small apartment above a laundromat. She worked long shifts at the diner to help her younger sister through college. Her dream was to open her own café someday, a place where people could eat even if they couldn't afford to pay. Ethan found himself looking forward to her presence. Her kindness was quiet, effortless, and real. It wasn't charity. It was something deeper, something genuine. One night, as they sat beneath the glow of a flickering streetlight, she handed him half of her sandwich again. "You always save me food," Ethan said. "Don't you ever get tired of helping people?" She smiled faintly. "Maybe, but I think kindness is like a candle. You don't lose light by sharing it." He stared at her, Try to remember the last time anyone had spoken to him like that. Her words were simple, but they cut through years of cynicism. Days turned into weeks. The connection between them grew quietly, like a flower blooming in the cracks of concrete. She never asked where he came from or what had happened to him. She never judged, and that made it harder for him to keep lying. He wanted to tell her who he really was, that he wasn't a homeless man but a billionaire in disguise. He wanted to see her face when she learned the truth, to show her the world she had unknowingly touched. But fear stopped him. What if she felt betrayed? What if everything they shared vanished once she knew the truth? He said nothing. He kept playing the role, torn between honesty and the strange peace he had found living this lie. Then one day, the world shifted. Lila arrived at the diner to find her co-workers standing outside. The owner was pacing, his face pale. "We're closing," he said. "Rent's gone up again. I can't keep the place running." Lila's heart sank. She had worked there for years. It was more than a job. It was her stability, her refuge. That night, she told Ethan as they sat by the diner's back alley, "They're shutting down Mara's. I'll be out of work in a week." Ethan felt a surge of guilt. He could fix it easily. One phone call, one wire transfer, and the diner could stay open. But to do that, he'd have to reveal who he was. He hesitated. "Maybe it's the best," Lila said, trying to smile. "Maybe this is life pushing me toward that dream I keep talking about." "The café?" he asked. She nodded. "Yeah, a small place. Warm lights, good coffee, no judgment. A place for people like you." He smiled sadly. "People like me." She looked at him then, her eyes soft. People who just need a little hope. The guilt became unbearable. He wanted to tell her everything, but the words wouldn't come. That night, a storm rolled through the city. Ethan sat alone under the diner's awning as the rain poured down, soaking him to the skin. The streets were empty. The wind howled, and for the first time, he realized how fragile this life could be. By morning, he made a decision. He couldn't let her lose everything. Not her. Not the only person who had seen him for who he was, even when he was no one. When Lila came home that night, she found an envelope slipped under her door. Inside was a handwritten letter. "You once said kindness is like a candle." It read, "You were right. You lit something in me I didn't know was still alive. You don't know who I really am, but I promise this isn't goodbye. Look for me when your dream comes true." There was also a key taped to the bottom and a folded piece of paper with an address. The next day, curiosity led her there. The address pointed to a small, empty cafe space on Elm Street. The door was unlocked, and inside, she found a note sitting on the counter. "This place is yours now. The rent is paid for 3 years. Use it to build what you believe in, because you gave when you had little, and that made me believe again." Lila's hands trembled as she read the words. She looked around at the empty space. Sunlight streaming through the dusty windows. It felt unreal. She knew it could only be one person, Ethan, the man she had shared her food with on the street corner. Tears welled in her eyes. She whispered his name into the silence. Months passed. The cafe opened, just as she dreamed. She called it the Kind Cup. It was small but full of warmth, cream-colored walls, shelves lined with donated books, and the scent of cinnamon and coffee in the air. By the door hung a sign that read, "If you can pay, pay it forward. If you can't, take what you need." People came in droves. Students, single parents, homeless men and women who had once been invisible to everyone else. The cafe became a safe place, a second home for those who needed kindness most. And though she never said it out loud, Lila built the cafe for him, for the man who had reminded her that compassion still mattered. One golden afternoon, a year after the diner closed, the doorbell chimed. Lila looked up from behind the counter and froze. Standing there was a man in a tailored gray suit, freshly shaven, with the same blue eyes she could never forget. Her breath caught. "Ethan?" He smiled softly. I heard this place served the best coffee in town. Tears filled her eyes as she rushed toward him. You came back. I told you I would, he said. I just didn't know how to show up as myself again. She looked at him, taking in the truth of who he really was. You're not homeless, are you? He shook his head. No, I'm sorry for lying. I didn't mean to deceive you. I just needed to know if kindness still existed, if love could exist without money. She was silent for a long moment, tears slipping down her cheeks. Then she whispered, You didn't need to test me, Ethan. You just needed to believe in what you already had inside you. He reached out and took her hand. I believe now. They sat together for hours, talking about everything that had happened. Ethan told her about the experiment, the guilt, and how her small act of kindness had changed him more than all his millions ever could. She listened quietly, then smiled. You were searching for love, Ethan, and you found it not in wealth, but in the truth of what we can give. Months later, the Kind Cup became more than a cafe. It turned into a movement. Ethan, using his resources, helped Lila expand the idea across other cities. Each branch carried the same message of hope and generosity. Whenever people asked how it all began, Ethan never mentioned the disguise or the test. He would only say, It started with a woman who gave half her sandwich to a stranger. In time, their friendship grew into something deeper. Love, this time, came without conditions, without masks, without fear. One night, after closing, they sat together in the quiet cafe. The lights were dim, rain tapped gently against the windows, and soft music played from a small speaker. Lila leaned her head on his shoulder. Do you ever miss your old life? Ethan smiled. Sometimes. But then I look at this place, these people, and I realize I didn't really live before. I just existed. She looked up at him. And now, he brushed a strand of hair from her face. Now I have everything that matters. Outside, the rain stopped, and the city lights shimmered in reflection to the cafe glass. For a man who once doubted love, Ethan finally understood it. Not the kind you buy, but the kind you build, one act of kindness at a time. Love had found him not in boardrooms or mansions, but on a cold street corner, in the hands of a waitress who saw a soul instead of a status. And in that truth, he found something money could never buy, peace. Because sometimes the richest hearts really do belong to those who have the least. And when two such hearts meet, even the coldest world begins to feel warm again. If you love this story, hit the like button, subscribe to this channel, and turn on notification for more intriguing stories like this from Anessa Stories.